I recall when I was very, very young, and I went to private schools primarily, and I was the only black face in there, and I used to cringe when the teachers spoke about slavery, because I felt so, from what I heard from the teachers, I felt that the slaves were just powerless. You didn't hear anything about creativity, you didn't hear anything about how intellectual it had to have been to create certain things for the Underground Railroad and education and this network prior to technology.
We recognize that we all bear the shame of a nation that would condone slavery at all. We highlight the fact that even in the 19th century, women played a leading role in ending slavery, but acknowledge that even today, 150 years later, African American women in this country are still not treated fairly, and really women all around the globe, as we heard from the authors of Half the Sky earlier this week, are not always entitled to education, sustenance, or the life without sexual abuse that their male counterparts are entitled to. This conference will no doubt cause us to recognize how far we have come, but at the same time, how far we must still go if we are to achieve true equality for all people. But what an exciting way to do this, through interesting speakers, published authors, and accomplished artists.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Ella's song. Told you I couldn't sing, but it doesn't matter. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Ella's song. These black women sang about liberation, and in doing so, they evoked the history of Ella Baker, a woman who in the 1940s worked with the NAACP and the SCLC in the 1950s. A woman who is the intellectual founder and mentor of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Sweet Honey in the Rock evoked the memories of black freedom journeys. And they encouraged their audience in a powerful, gut-wrenching way to see, to think, to grapple with the isms, the oppressions, the imbrication of isms that have perpetuated and continue to perpetuate injustice and inequality in society.
Harriet Tubman cannot be understood, Cernet writes, in a holistic way if, like Conrad, we dismiss the subject of religion or rob Tubman of her core spirituality.
Most of us, I think of the African American freedom struggle as something that started on the slave ships, often started in the slave castles off the coast or on the coast of West Africa.
And maybe that's part of the reason that we don't know as much about Mary Ann Shadd, because she was encouraging people to leave the United States, because she did live part of her time in Canada, because Frederick Douglass did encourage people to stay and do what they could within the United States. And he was also a man.
I've talked to colleagues of mine who've done research on African American Shakers in the Kentucky communities, and she told me that on the one hand, they were having debates about whether or not it was appropriate to buy a person out of slavery, even if it was so they could become a Shaker and have something good happen. They just, in concept, was it right to buy somebody, even if it was to a good end? At the same time, another Shaker community was manufacturing leg irons for slave owners. We know that in Georgia, there was a short-lived Shaker community, and there was one incident of a black person being frozen out from joining the community because of pressure from the outside world.
Does anybody know what, there we go, the significance of the National Heritage Corridor? What is it a part of? A major national organization. Yes? National Park Service. Excellent. And one more bag, I think. You can have something now. We have some ducks later that can hand out as well. Can you go to the next slide? Oh, great. So, let me tell you a little bit about the Erie Canalway National Heritage Corridor. So, right now, if you think we're in the city of Troy, right? Here we are. Troy is part of the National Heritage Corridor. And those of you who may not know what it is, the National Heritage Corridor is like a new kind of national park. So, the Erie Canalway doesn't own any property. But what happened in 1996, a special resource study was done, as is done with other national park sites, units, to determine the significance of this entire waterway, its original alignments, and its over 200 communities. And it was deemed that this is so significant to our nation's history, and even international history, that it was designated a National Heritage Corridor in 2000. So what is very unique about our National Heritage Corridor, okay, is that we're one of 49 in the nation, right? But more importantly, we're one of 3 that are run by a federal appointed commissioner.
So it should be that you go to Auburn, learn about Harriet Tubman, but once you're there, it entices you to go to Lake Placid, or go to Syracuse, or go to Auburn, or go to Buffalo, or go to Lockport, or go to Newfane, and sites in between. That's a basic approach. And really, and I'll just wind with this, it's nice to be involved in the Underground Railroad, but the reality is that you have to pay for it.
And you know what? I never knew about the history, the entire history behind Ida B. Wells. Like, I always hear her name, but I never knew exactly what it was that she was famous for. It was good to learn.
My name is Scott Christensen, and I've been involved with this project from the beginning, and I think it's a great endeavor. And I recently published a book about the Underground Railroad, about the escape of a fugitive slave named Charles Knoll, who was captured and rescued a few blocks from here in 1860.
Just like with the Underground Railroad, it was a network. There, it wasn't just one person involved. And 2, with the research, there's a network of individuals that are involved in the Underground Railroad, and it's so important to tap into that network, as opposed to trying to do it on your own. Right. I mean, we've had such wonderful support from people that have done tons of research, and are so excited to have someone want to portray it, on canvas, because visual images, kind of get embedded in the mind and heart, and it can move a person to action. And so getting involved in the network is really, really important.
The Underground Railroad, at its essence, a loose network of lawbreakers. I like that definition. A loose network of lawbreakers. Black, white, Native American, women, men, free, enslaved. Thousands of people whose names are lost. Often strangers helping one another. Feeding, hiding, guiding, risking their lives, contesting against individuals, ideas, communities, the state, against slaveholders, sympathizers of slavery, Supreme Court justices, police and patrollers, citizens, to challenge the idea of black inferiority and the naturalness of black people's subjugation, to help bring into reality liberation. So for the bulk of this presentation, I want to try to the best of my ability to do a little of that much work that needs to be done.